Well, well, well. Looky here, looky here. According to U.S. News, Reverend Al Sharpton meets with Target CEO over halting of DEI initiative. Activists had called for boycotting the company after it announced a rollback of diversity and equity and inclusion efforts. First of all, no black leaders called for it. It was the Black Collective. You see, gone are those days of our people being dumb. We understand the point of we will not shop where we are not appreciated and respected. That's number one. The reason for this parlay I've been made to understand is because a tanking of profits since the boycott and plummeting stock market figures. This is the reason why they're meeting as a way to influence black people to come back into their stores. So you see, it's not about really respecting black people or honoring black people. It's all about how much money they can get. And that's not surprising that this is a capitalist nation, I must be honest, I've been saying who and what is running this country, and a lot of you put on these suits, which I really think are suits of deception. But you put on these suits to give this air of intelligence, and you know what you're doing, and you're smart, and you use your big words. But I really question your brain IQ. Because what did you think was going to happen? How do you think this was smart? You didn't think this through? You align yourselves with people. You support and back people and institutions and administrations to marginalize black people, the very people who are spending their money in your companies. Now, common sense, this is not rocket science intelligence, common sense would say that if you marginalize these people, you succeed in marginalizing them, getting rid of jobs and so on, who eventually will be even buying your products? Who will be able to afford it? That never occurred to you? Wow. Yeah, you really are making America great again. It's really working out. I'm just going to say this. I barely shopped in your store. Really? But this is added incentive to not go back, and will never go back, even a few times, because you don't care about black people. It's all about the money and what you can get, and if given different circumstances, you do the same thing again. So I would advise black people not to go in there. But this is the world. This is a game of chess. If we are to go back, and I'm not going. I don't care what the deal is. But I guess since you're negotiating with certain so-called black leaders, unless there's a major profit gain and compensation to black people. And personally, I really don't even think we should go into these stores. I really think black people, we need to go back to community. Because if we go back to community, working together, we need to go back to sewing, home economics, recycling stuff. Because if you really think about it, everything is about consumerism in this country. Consumerism, we buy a lot of stuff that we don't even need. And you buy this stuff only for those same people to take that money you make and support the very people who want your destruction. This would be an excellent time for black people. If it's clothes, why can't people in the community go back to making their own clothes and selling it to people in the neighborhood? Why can't we go back to doing things for ourselves? Because this will only repeat itself in the future again. I think we really need to go back to community and making our own stuff and selling buying and selling within the community rather than taking our money and giving it to people who don't like us. Let the money work in our neighborhoods, especially since they don't like us. It's just about the money. One last thing. You know how you all have made concerted efforts to hide Black history, to erase us from history, get rid of our books because you believe it's hurting us? Well, guess what? What you fail to realize is that in hurting someone, you're also hurting yourself. Because I don't know if you're aware, but if you go back in history and see what happened to Black people and what they did, you would have known that this was not a good idea, since common sense is lacking. Because common sense would say, no, I don't alienate my customer base, even if I don't like them. It would make no sense. But since common sense is not common, as they say, those books that they try to hide from you, that history they try to hide from you, you would have benefited from it. That history about how Black people boycotted when they said we won't shop where we won't work, if you read things like that and saw, you could have had some idea that this was going to happen. So, again, in trying to erase our history from the books, which historically is what your people have done, because you did the same thing in Africa when you would go to Africa and steal their knowledge. After that, they would burn the universities and everything so that there would be no knowledge there, but it also hurts you as well. Because if you had read those books, you would have known better that this was not a good idea. Or maybe you felt that we were so marginalized, who cares? So think twice. Think twice. When trying to hurt people, you end up hurting yourself in the long run.